Okay, we're going to go ahead and read the next chapter, which is, or I'm going to read the next chapter. It's called Helen Comes. There was another school board meeting the next month. I didn't go, but I knew what happened. Mrs. Jones argued again that none of the books should be removed from the library, but the school board still agreed with Mrs. Spencer. All the books from her second list were officially banned. The very next day in social studies, Mr. Vaughn told us we are going to start studying the Bill of Rights. The Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution to explain how the new American government would work, but then they realized they needed an extra part to talk about all the freedoms Americans automatically got that the government could not take away from them. That's what the Bill of Rights is. It's 10 amendments that protect the natural rights of all citizens. The Constitution was important because it told the world how we were going to run our government, Mr. Vaughn said. The Bill of Rights might be even more important, though, because it said what our new country was going to be about. It said, here are the rights we think are so important that no one can take them away from us, not even the government. We added a lot more later on, but the first 10 are very famous. It was the first document of its kind in the world. For this social studies unit, I'm going to split you up into pairs, Mr. Vaughn told us. Each team will study a different amendment. Your assignment will be to give a presentation to the class that explains what your amendment means. How you do that, what kind of presentation you give, is completely up to you. Rebecca's hand shot up. Mr. Vaughn, can I do the Sixth Amendment, please? Sure, Rebecca, Mr. Vaughn said. He erased something in his notes and wrote it in something new. I looked at Rebecca like she was crazy. The Sixth Amendment is the right to a trial by jury, she told me, and the right to counsel. Does anyone else have a favorite amendment they want to do? Mr. Vaughn asked. Not surprisingly, no one else did. All right, Mr. Vaughn said. Jana, I want you and Tracy to take the Fifth Amendment. Kevin, you and Danny take the second. I tuned out while Mr. Vaughn gave the other assignments. Rebecca and I made another $7 in our most recent bake sale, and I was trying to decide whether to buy How to Eat Fried Worms or Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl. They were really hard to compare. Amy Ann, Mr. Vaughn said, are you with us? Sorry, I said. Beside me, I could sense Rebecca's eyes boring into me, but I focused on Mr. Vaughn. I said I'm assigning you and Trey the First Amendment. That all right? Was that all right? Was I all right working on my social studies project with the son of my arch enemy? The boy who would rat me out the second I slipped up and mentioned the BBLL? No, I was definitely not all right with that. But instead I said, okay, all right, everybody get together with your partner and start reading about your amendment, Mr. Vaughn said. I'll be coming around to help. Everybody else got up and put their desks together. I sat where I was and made Trey drag his desk all the way across the room to me. He parked it right up against mine with a thud, making my pencil pop out of its little ditch. Trey stared at his closed notebook. I crossed my arms and stared at my textbook. You don't like me much, do you? Trey asked. I wanted to laugh. Don't like you much, I wanted to say. Oh, why would that be, Trey? Maybe because besides your mom banning my favorite book, you drew that awful picture of me last year? Trey likes to draw. That's his thing. And I hated to admit it, but he was really good. He was so good that last year when Trey and I were both in Mrs. Maples' room, he decided he would draw each of us as animals. Mrs. Maples was a wise old maple tree. Kenny Haskins, who was good at soccer, he drew as a cheetah. Lavina Maddox, who wanted to be a singer when she grew up, he drew as a songbird. Daniel Farad, who loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he drew as a Ninja Turtle. Everybody loved the pictures he drew of them, except me. The picture Trey drew of Amy Ann Ollinger was a mouse sitting on a book, chewing its tail. He didn't draw me as a cheetah or a Ninja Turtle or a songbird. He drew me as a wimpy little mouse. Trey bent his head down to look at me, and I realized I hadn't said anything for a long time. Listen, Amy Ann, he said at last. The room intercom crackled to life, making both of us jump. Mr. Vaughn, the secretary said, I'm sorry for the interruption, but can you please send Jeffrey Gonzalez and Amy Ann Ollinger in the office? Ooh, the rest of the class said. Everybody always did that any time anybody got called to the office. like you were in big trouble, even if it was just because you had a dentist appointment. But this time they knew they might be right. Half the eyes of the room were on me, and I knew why. They all knew I ran the BBLL, and they were all thinking the exact same thing. Amy Ann is busted. I'll send them right along, Mrs. Perry, Mr. Vaughn said, motioning in the same time for us to get a move on. My legs felt like jello as I stood. Across the room, Rebecca's and Danny's faces looked like they had just seen Helen's ghost by the pond. I didn't know how I was even going to walk to the door without collapsing. I put my hand on Trey's desk to steady myself, and he looked at me. Hope you're not in trouble, he said. All right, so we'll have to find out tomorrow if she's in trouble. All right, guys, have a good night.